Bushcraft 412, and today let's talk about everybody's favorite topic. It seems like there's videos all over YouTube about this. The upcoming financial collapse or the collapse of the dollar. This is a subject I'm kind of really interested in. I really follow it and read a lot of news articles about it and read a lot of research. And I just kind of want to put my 2 cents in here. And first and foremost, my biggest complaint about the subject is that you read these articles or you watch these videos on the internet about the dollar and how it's going to collapse tomorrow and it's going downhill quick and we're all going to be, it's going to be SHTF, end of the world scenario. But you know what? You'll be fine if you buy gold and silver. It seems like a lot of the information out there is really a big advertisement for gold and silver to make these companies that sell gold and silver money. And I don't trust all the information that's out there about the dollar collapsing. I think it's really hyped up and it's really on people's minds because there are, let's face it, there are some very legitimate concerns about the value of our money and where that's heading. But at the same time, we have people stirring the pot, trying to get rich off this fear. And I think there's a lot of BS out there about our money because of this desire for people to make money off of gold and silver. And I understand gold and silver is at the highest it's ever been right now. And people are making good money off it, but they're doing so at the cost of American people and preying on our fears. So let's talk real quick about our money in general. Our money is no longer based on a commodity. We were on the gold standard for a long time, which meant you could trade our money for gold or silver through the federal government, but we abandoned that practice in the 70s. So our money is now just, these little pieces of paper that you see on the floor. But that's okay because people believe in those pieces of paper. The dollar is the world's reserve currency, which means all currency is judged based on the dollar's value. Likewise, if you go to buy oil from OPEC, you're buying it in dollar bills, not euros, not yen, dollar bills, good old greenbacks. So there's a lot of faith in the dollar out there, which is what keeps its value, is faith. Because without that faith that it's worth something, these are literally just little pieces of paper that I have strewn out on my floor here. So, with that said, let's look at what is a threat to our money. One of the biggest threats to our money is the national debt. We owe $15 trillion right now. Our debt's increasing by close to $1 trillion a year. No end in sight. Europe right now is going through a debt crisis. They are, several countries on the verge of default. They can no longer afford their debt. America, although we're not there yet, we are an ass hair away from it. 5 to 10 years, we're going to be in the same trouble, if not worse, than Europe. And I definitely think 5 to 10 years, if we don't make major changes, we could potentially see a financial collapse scenario or a dollar collapse scenario. So, our debt is astounding. We're not doing anything. We're just making it worse. Another thing is inflation. We're inflating our money. The Federal Reserve is and has been intentionally inflating our money by keeping interest rates low for close to a decade now. Our money inflates by close to, I think it's like 4% a year, which means every year you have to spend 4% more of your money to buy the same products you did a year before. They estimate now that the dollar bill now compared to the dollar bill in the early 1900s is worth about 4 cents. I mean, we've inflated our money that bad, and it's just not worth what it used to be worth. Value-wise, what a dollar will buy you then versus what a dollar will buy you now is two very different things. And a lot of that's caused by the Federal Reserve printing money, just printing and printing and printing nonstop money and flooding the market, therefore, supply and demand decreasing its value. But number two, they mess with the interest rates. The interest rates are at the lowest they've ever been, ever. And when you lower the interest rates, that increases inflation because you're creating all this debt because people are willing to lend, people are lending way more money. People are borrowing way more money. It creates all this interest, but, it creates a bigger money supply. And that inflates the money. And the Federal Reserve is, if you haven't read up on the Federal Reserve, you need to. After you're done with this video, you need to start reading about them. They're not a part of our government. They are not a federal branch. They are not part of the Treasury. They are basically a privately owned bank owned by a group of individuals. And what their purpose is to lend us our own money and to set monetary policy. And they do this by constitutional amendment that they somehow managed to get in there. And these guys have so much money. They've profited so much off of us. There was an article on Yahoo recently about how the Federal Reserve made, trillions in loans to the banks before the government bailouts. Trillions. We gave them, $800 billion in the bailout? The Federal Reserve prior to that had given them trillions. And why didn't we know this? Because the Federal Reserve can't be audited. They're not accountable for the money they make. They don't pay taxes on it. They don't, they have no responsibility whatsoever as to what they do. They don't have to report to the government. They can't be audited. What they do with their money is up to them. And they loaned out all that money without us knowing. And that was trillions. Trillions that they gave to those banks that were failing. I think, there's definitely some shenanigans going on there. When you're renting your own money from a private company and then they're inflating that money and making it worth less and less and less so that you have to print more and more and more to keep up, that sounds like a big old scam to me. Something's funny there, and you guys, I kind of did a bad job explaining how the Federal Reserve works, but you know what? Get out, start reading about it, start learning about it, because if you're prepping and you're looking at SHTF, it's something you need to be aware of as to what's going on with them and what they're doing to our money. So that, of course, is a threat to our money. The debt is a threat to our money. Another huge threat to our money is we are very close to no longer being the world's biggest economy. China is coming up fast. And in a handful more years, they are going to be the biggest economy. And when that day comes when their economy overtakes ours, people may have more interest in their money. People may, decide, hey, see you later, America, it's been fun, but we're going with China now. They're the new boss. And that's a potential threat to our money, is when people no longer want our money, they're interested in some other money, the euro, the yen, the Chinese yuan, whatever, that's a big threat to our money. And if you take that in conjunction with how we've been printing money and our debt, we definitely, I think, have a 5 to 10 year problem that's going to erupt with our money. 5 to 10 years. Not immediately. I know the people who out there who are trying to profit off of you want you to think this is going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, but I don't think so. People still believe in our money. Our money is still being traded for oil. Our money is still being traded for other currencies. There's too much faith in the dollar for it to fail right now. Sorry, guys. I know, you may feel like you've been doing all that prepping for nothing, but we owe $15 trillion to people. People aren't going to forget that. They're going to hold the value of our money as long as they humanly can. China does not want the dollar bill to fail because they have $1 trillion of our treasuries. They have $1 trillion of our debt. If our money fails, they lose that trillion. Same thing with Japan and Europe. These guys own a lot of our debt, as well as the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is one of the biggest top 5 owners of the American national debt. They're not going to let the money fail right now. It's not going to happen. Their faith in the money, as well as the American people's faith in our money, is going to keep it going. It's, sorry guys, the money's going to keep on going. It's based on faith, and right now there's a lot of faith. Now, there may come that time when our debt gets so big that another currency seems really appealing, and people might start leaning that way. And then there's going to be some trigger, a natural disaster, a war, something like that is going to trigger our money to start hyperinflating. And then boom, then we're going to see the slide, and that's going to happen. But not today, guys. Sorry. It's something we definitely have to worry about. You need to be prepping and reading and learning and looking into this and being worried about it and telling people about it and talking about it and putting pressure on your elected officials to do something about our debt and our problems. It's a take action kind of call to arms thing, I'm telling you. But, a lot of the information is to get you to buy gold, and that's not cool. But we really need to get off our ass and start looking at what we're doing and how we're living. Because if we don't, honestly, 5 to 10 years from now, we could see the dollar collapse. It could definitely happen. It's, the stage is set. It's only, our situation is only getting worse. The debt is only getting bigger. Inflation is only increasing. There's no signs of that stopping. The odds of it stopping are pretty much zero. So as that builds, we get our national debt gets to be like Europe, where we're at 160% debt to GDP ratio. You may see the problems start. Things start to happen. People start to invest in other monies. China overtakes our economy. And I think it's going to be not an overnight thing, but a pretty good slide over maybe like a year, that we're going to see our money just get knocked down to next to nothing. And we're probably going to have to, do what a lot of countries do, which is come up with a new currency or take zeros off our money. The 10 is now worth $1, the 100 is now worth 10, that kind of thing. Like what they did in Zimbabwe when they had hyperinflation. We will definitely take measures to stop it because we have a lot invested in our money. But, our way of life and living like we are may come to that end in 5 to 10 years. I think it's a decent estimate, and I think, the things to look for in this collapse are, when our national debt to GDP hits 150%, which will probably be about 5 years, I think that's a big trigger. I think when China eventually overtakes our economy, that will be another one. And the most likely thing to trigger it off, in my opinion, will be the day that OPEC no longer accepts dollars for oil. And that could be a result of a war or just plain old economics and money making. But I think that might be the trigger to do it. But who knows? It could be anything. It's all just guesswork at this point. But, it's time to start taking a look at what you're doing, how you're living, where you're getting your information from. Because, honestly, if you're starving, you're not going to trade anything for gold or silver. You're going to trade commodity for commodity. Food for ammo. Ammo for food. Guns for food. You're going to trade. You're going to barter. Gold and silver is going to be worthless to you if the dollar collapses. I assure you that. Yes, it may reestablish value when a new currency comes in, because you're going to have gold, and gold's always going to be worth something. But in SHTF, gold, I don't care. I will not trade it for food or ammo or anything. I would rather have those commodities. Not a safe investment, guys. Especially if you're looking at an SHTF scenario. If you're looking to profit off of this collapse, sure, buy gold and silver. Because when things get back together, you're going to have a hell of an investment. But if you're looking to feed your family and take care of your family, start looking at food. Start looking at guns, ammo, commodities. Those are the things that are going to keep your family afloat. Invest your time in learning skills, learning how to do things, learning to do things that will earn you commodities. Most of us work in the service industry. We provide some service. We don't, your average person is not a carpenter or a plumber or a mechanic. And if you work that kind of desk job, it's time in life to start looking at skills you can build that you can provide commodities for your family. Because in 5 to 10 years, you may need that. You may need to take a different line of work because you need to provide for your family and you need to provide a valuable asset to the community, which may be carpentry, it may be plumbing, it may be an electrician, it may be an auto mechanic, but it's time to start learning a physical trade that you can trade for a commodity. You know, there's going to come that day where we may be saying, hey, well, you know, I'll fix your car if you give me food. You know, so take that into consideration. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I know I burst a couple bubbles, you know, on this one, and there's going to be a lot of people who really disagree with that. And that's fine. You know, I welcome the comments. I welcome the conversation. But I hope you guys enjoyed.